Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today's guest is a longtime friend that we met almost 3 years ago, Kristin Menath, who comes to us from San Diego, California. Kristin is a wealth and legacy coach. She helps people break through money attachments or money aversions because both can hold you back from your potential. She brings spirituality into her coaching because she had found that most people pursue money as means to find their purpose where it should actually be in reverse. You must actively step into your purpose and do great things with what you have now. Then money can help boost what you are already doing. In addition to that, the reason why Kristin is on the podcast today, because she grew up in a single parent household. So welcome, Kristin. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, Irina. It's a pleasure to be here and to see you again. I have so much respect for you and what you're doing, and it's such an honor.
Thank you. Thank you. So what was it like for you to grow up in a single parent household? What were some of the challenges that you faced?
Well, for me, I had two younger sisters, and my dad left when I was 8 years old. And it's interesting because my sisters and we all had different reactions to it. Our experience going through the divorce and the separation were very unique. So as the oldest, I just got really, really angry. And as an 8-year old, I would make comments to even friends of like, oh, my dad's coming. And I wanted to keep like, that mindset of, well, if he doesn't want me, I don't want him. And so my dad was very active in our lives, thankfully. And my mom, she did an amazing job encouraging a relationship with him. But it wasn't until I was a teenager that I actually was able to let go of that anger and forgive him. So I spent a lot of my adolescence with very extreme anger issues. And I was even, my mom named me angry and hostile at one point. So it was like a warning label. Oh, Kristin's angry and hostile. So that was probably my biggest challenge, was my own emotions and reaction, and how that affected the rest of my life and relationships, where it was just anger.
Right, right. What happened that changed you? Like, so what happened for you to let go of that anger?
Yeah, that's
What?
such a great question. I was turning 16. I was like 15 and a half. And I had a family member in New York offer me my grandfather's old car. And I really, really wanted that car for sentimental reasons. My grandpa passed when I was 8. So my dad left December of 1990, and my grandfather passed, I think, March of 91. And so I wanted this car for sentimental reasons. Well, I needed someone to drive out there or fly out there and drive it back with me. I wasn't old enough to do that on my own.
Right.
And there weren't many options, and my dad offered, and I was just like, ugh, I'm gonna have to spend so much time with him. And we almost made it home. I think we made it to the Grand Canyon. And one evening in the car, he brought it up and started kind of talking about my childhood, about what happened, about him leaving. It was so uncomfortable, and I didn't want to go there. And I could tell it was for him too. We didn't go deep together like ever. And man, it almost makes me want to cry right now because he apologized. Sorry. Whew. He apologized. And I think that was the first time I felt acknowledged for what I had gone through, and that he cared about what, quote, damage he felt had been done to me. And he said, I know you're angry, and I know I don't know exactly how he worded it, but basically he knew I had issues and that I was pushing back on having a relationship with him. And basically it was fairly short and sweet, but it opened up it kind of cracked that angry shell I had for the first time. And just like, I mean, could be that being on that path of continual growth. I wouldn't say it happened really fast, but that was the start of it as a teenager. And then as I got older, um, going to events and having coaching and being able to self-evaluate and continually break down the walls that I've built up, and that journey of growth. I mean, it's painful, but it's so worth it. And I love both my parents, and they actually have a really good relationship considering everything too now. So
Mhm.
um, that's kind of how that all happened. But he was the one who initiated it.
Mhm. Would you say you're completely healed now?
Ah, never. No, no, no. I I'm one of those people who believes if anyone tells you they have it all figured out or they've made it, then just run the other direction. But I think knowing I'm on that path, and knowing I'm on that path of growth and healing is there's no better place to be. And just being on that journey, and knowing there's always room for improvement, knowing that that's what there's a your eyes on the prize.
Right.
Yeah, it's a good feeling.
Awesome. What were some of the things you wish you knew? Like if you could go back in the past and meet your teenager self before that release point, what would you tell her?
That's a great question. Usually when I'm proposed with questions about going back and redoing things, I'm like, no, I wouldn't, because it wouldn't have led me to where I am now. And I'm grateful for my journey.
Mhm.
But I love the way you worded that question, because I think that, again, I'm grateful for how everything played out, and but there was so much missed in my childhood, a relationship with my father. It honestly, I think it even affected my relationship with my mom too. It wasn't isolated. It was how I defined a lot of relationships, was this like sort of you versus me,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna come out on top. Like I was just like pushing people away. And um I think friendships too. I didn't have very many deep, close friendships as a kid. Like a lot of people have that best friend. I had good friends, but no one I let in very, very deeply. So yeah, it would have been, I wouldn't mind going back and telling that young Kristen that like the anger is not worth it. I think at the time it made me feel like I had control, and it
Mhm.
made me feel more powerful, but really the answer was humility and love, and recognizing other people's hurt. But I wasn't mature enough to do that yet. I mean, maybe had my eyes been open to it, but um yeah, I think, a lot of missed opportunity for myself and relationships, but also for other people. Like everyone's hurting in some capacity. But when you're so focused on your own pain and your own survival, you're not lending a hand. You're not loving on other people. So I think that's probably what I would go back and change.
Okay, thank you. And what about parents who are raising who are single parents who are raising kids? What kind of advice would you give them?
Um, well, for one, your kids can be totally fine. And like looking at me and my sisters, I know I saw what my mom went through, and the worry and the pain that she wasn't giving enough. And one of my best friends is a single mom, and she says that all the time, like I can't fill those shoes. And actually, it's interesting. I gave her this advice years ago, and I told her, I'm like, you're not supposed to. Like, God didn't create you to be the father and the mother. And that doesn't mean you don't have to show up more, do things because um, that gap is missing, but be who you were created to be. And I mean, this, I'm getting spiritual. I don't know what everybody believes in, but like if you do believe in a higher power, allow God to come in and fill the void, because it's not something that we're capable of doing fully. And that was actually something my mom told us as kids, which is a little my mom was very honest with us, but also protected us from, you know, certain things. But she was very honest with us, and she told us, as like, probably as teens, I can't do this. She's like, I cannot do this on my own. I cannot raise 3 children by myself. And at first we were kind of like, why are you, this is weird and awkward. I'm sorry that I'm your child. And she's like, no, she's like, one day I was crying and I felt so overwhelmed and so hopeless. And she's like, I just prayed. I said, God, they're yours. Like, you have to raise them and I will do whatever you call me to do, but I can't do it by myself. She's like, I literally just gave you to God. And I was like, wow, well, thank you, because we lived an amazing lives, and we're successful adults, and we have good relationships. We all three of us are in good marriages, and I think that was the best thing she could have done, is actually admit she can't do it all and give herself that grace, and like allow, God to come in and fill the gaps. So um that would be my best advice to a single mom or a single dad right now. You aren't everything, and you're not supposed to be. And it is hard. It does take more time, more patience, more everything, because you are one person, but you're not supposed to fill both shoes all the time.
Thank you. Thank you for that. What are some of the things, what is the most exciting thing in your life right now?
Oh gosh. The most exciting thing. I'm excited by very small things. So this might be very boring, but like I love spending time with my children. So me and my husband, we have big lofty goals, but I would say I get really excited about all the little moments much more. So snuggling with my kids, watching a movie the other night, planning things that we're gonna do with them like day by day. So we pulled out like this, it was like a family date like ideas, and so planning some fun activities for the kids and things like that, planting a garden. Those are honestly the things I get most excited about right now, and learning to live in the moment and enjoy the moment. That's the best.
I think those are what make life meaningful, actually, to
Yeah.
concentrate on those little things, not some great big goals, but the little everyday joys, that whether
Yeah.
it's a smile on a child's face or seeing a sunrise or just, doing those simple day-to-day stuff and actually pausing and savoring the moment.
And most of those things don't cost a penny. They're there, and it's your choice to see them and experience them. And honestly, I spent far too long rushing through. I'm a productivity addict, or a former productivity addict, and I just would do, and now to actually slow down and have my 5-year-old crawl in my lap and give me a hug around the neck, and that's the pure gold right there.
Totally, totally. What do you think is the most important trait to instill in a child?
That is a great question. I think my answer would have to be like it's faith-based. One thing I try to teach my kids is to see themselves through God's eyes, because the world is trying to bring them down so much, or to get them either trapped in self-doubt or spinning their wheels, like trying to work their way to being valuable. And if your kids can see themselves the way they were created, the way they were, put here on this earth for, and how, and that they're beautiful and smart and kind and fun and all these things without any effort, that's just who they are and their being. Like, I want my kids to have that permission to fully pursue their purpose outside of all of this other noise. And so I think that's probably my answer, is just helping my kids see themselves through God's eyes and no one else's. And one thing I say to them all the time, because they'll come to me, so and so said this and da 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 da, and those things are real. it hurts when people speak badly of you, and those words, they do have power, and you can give them more power or not. But I'd always just say to them, all right, whose opinion of you matters? And when they were really young, they used to say, well, yours, Mom. I'm like, no, my opinion of you does not matter. It's God's opinion of you that matters. So if I say things that contradict what God says about you, then cross my opinion off. It doesn't matter. And that's all I want them looking toward is, who am I? What's my purpose? How can I quiet all this other noise and just focus on what matters?
Thank you. I love it. Can you give us an example of how would you do that? Like,
how do I do that? It's constant. So, for example, and this was really hard. My daughter came home yesterday. At school, some other kid was starting a club called the Cool Click Kids Club. They told my older daughter that she could be in it, and they told my younger one that they hang around, they're like two peas in a pod, that she couldn't be in it yet, that she had to wait. And she was pretty devastated by that. And of course, Mama Bear is like losing her mind. I'm like losing it. And I knew that wasn't a place to talk to her about it. Like I had to calm myself down because it wasn't, I just wanted to go to battle. And so did my husband. He was just like, this is ridiculous. Maybe we should switch schools. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, this is how the world operates. This is how kids are. This is how adults are. This is not a rare thing. You can't run from it. Like, they're going to be hit with that barrage of people telling them they're not good enough for the rest of their life. The best thing we can do is help her reframe this and help her decide how she wants to show up in it. And so a lot of it is building confidence and speaking life over them. So it's so easy as a parent to, gosh, you're so messy and you don't listen and you this and you that, because those things are real. And that is the parent struggle. But you also have to speak life into your kids. You're so smart. Tinley, I love how you drew this picture. Tell me about it. Just giving them that perspective of how you see them, but also how God sees them. And so it's not always easy because you're literally combating the noise of the world, but you have to fill that up their tank of the good and the truth to override all of that. And I think that's something that's challenging as a parent, because our lives are hard and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of intention to show up as the parent that we want to be. I mean, I'm never the parent I want to be every day or any day, 100% ever. But you have opportunities every day to like switch that on and be like, okay, what does my kid need from me right now? What do they need to hear? Because you're the only one who's going to do it. They don't have friends. I mean, it's very rare to have a friend who goes up and says, you're a really good artist. Like, can you tell me about your artwork? Like, it's human nature to want to talk about ourselves. And, we'd gravitate toward people who feel good about us or have similar interests, but they're not always speaking life and speaking truth. So that's really, we have to do that as parents. So it's a continual thing. But anytime those opportunities come up where they're crushed, and, it could be a sibling. My kids have been fighting all the time and, arguing over whatever, Tinley said I'm stupid or whatever it is. And all right, well, do you believe you're stupid? Do you think God created you stupid? Well, no. And we read scripture, so I'll pull out scripture. Okay, this is what God says about how he created you. So what's truth and what do you need to sweep away and, throw in the trash? So that's what I try to do to the best of my ability as much as possible.
Thank you. I love that advice. And especially kind of could be difficult as, I don't know, growing up, what we've seen our parents do, how they raise us, and that we always kind of tend to see the negative side of things, like whether kids, throw toys on the floor, or they are not excelling in all areas of their, let's say, study work. and concentrating on that one that's broken, that's not,
Right.
and missing the point that the other ones are so amazing. We don't necessarily point out, even in not just parents, but in a real life, like when you ask somebody like, what do you want, they start blurting out things they don't want.
Right.
We
Oh,
always see that the
yes.
negative, and we don't appreciate all the positive things because
And
we take them for granted.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny you say that. Yesterday we were leaving school really late and someone came out and handed my kids balloons. Excuse me. And there were enough balloons that the kids had some and then the parents took home extras. And one of my daughter's balloons flew away. And she was in like sobbing hysterically. Now there's 10 balloons and we immediately replaced it with an identical balloon. And then I went and got pizza and got her dessert because we never do dessert. So like a massive treat. And she has the same balloons that she had to start. And she could not see the positive. She was struggling so hard. And when emotions are heightened, sometimes that's not the best time to have like a reframing conversation. Sometimes when they're emotional, you just love on them until they can, pull themselves out. But like the rest of the evening, every time I said, "Oh yeah, and you got balloons today," my daughter would go like, and her smile would just like sink and turn into a frown.
Mm-hmm.
And so after I think a couple hours had passed, and I finally said to her, "All right, honey, like only you can choose how you want to show up. And if you keep deciding that you want to be sad and heartbroken over losing the balloon, you're going to miss the joy of having a family pizza night and having dessert and having balloons. Like your house is filled with other balloons." And so just kind of teaching them that like, and it's not always about like telling them what to do, but kind of showing them, hey, like this is what you're doing and this is what it's creating. You can choose that path, or you can do this and choose this path. And what do you think you'd like to do? Kids don't love to be told what to do, but you can show them. And so eventually late in the evening, she finally was like, "Yeah, it was a pretty good day." I was like, "Oh, hallelujah, finally." Like you said, it's like this one balloon flew away, and that was the focus for like the next 3 hours. So
I know. To us, the called kids' problems, like they seem like little, and for them it's probably an elephant.
yes, yes. And I try to honor that. Their problems are very real to them and their emotions are very real.
Mm-hmm.
And so just because we don't understand it, or we're like, don't see the logic in it, like this is ridiculous, it doesn't help for us to just tell them they're being ridiculous. So I do try to love her through it, but man, it takes so much patience sometimes.
Thank you. What do you want to be remembered by?
Oh, goodness. Truthfully, it's funny I use that word. I would say just leading people to truth, putting them on that path of not looking right or looking left all the time for answers, but just staying on that narrow path and seeking truth. And when we can do that in love, we can help other people do that as well. And so that's it. Like I used to be a very judgmental person, and I'm still working on eliminating that from my personality. But I like that is truly my goal, is just to lovingly help other people, guide them to truth. And I'm still, I mean, we hopefully that journey will never end. Like I always want to be seeking truth and always learning, always growing, always humbling myself, because that is freedom for me, is being on that path. So that would be my answer.
I love it. I think oftentimes we seek truth from everywhere around us, but we don't have our own.
Yes,
Or
yes.
without ourselves, because of all of the propaganda and the way we've been growing up.
And it's hard to not do that, because the appearances are very convincing, and other people may look like they have it more figured out than us. But when we build a foundation on another person's knowledge or path or journey, well, they're human and they're not going to have everything right 100%. So you're building a foundation on that, and it will come crashing down eventually, just because they're human. And it might be like a tiny, like they might be 99% perfect, but that tiny little 1% is still missing because we're all human. And so it's so important to take in what we can from others, learn and grow from others, but you have to have a good, I don't know if filter is the right word, but take it in and like hold it up, be like, huh, is this true? Do I like, and why? And okay, well, let's check it out. We're not always right. And that's where humility comes in. It gives us permission to ebb and flow and adjust and to stay on that path, but it has to be our own journey. So it's challenging because there's so many gurus out there, and a lot of them have so much wisdom to share, but ultimately it has to be your own journey. So
Totally. Thank you. What are some of the current projects that you're working on?
Oh, that's a fun one. So many projects. I think the one that I'm most excited that's going to come out the soonest is going to be it's I want to help people break free from these toxic money attachments. And so many people don't even know they have a toxic money attachment because maybe most people see that and think, oh, that means I don't have money. Well, a lot of people who do have money, who have a lot more money than even I do, they don't have a healthy, fulfilling life because their money attachment is so toxic. And scripture talks about money over 2,000 times, and yet we avoid the topic like it's I don't know, a bad word. It's not. Money is a tool, it's a resource, but just like the dirt I use in my garden is a tool and resource, I don't seek purpose in finding more dirt. And so, we all have a certain amount of resources. If I have like a cup of dirt, I can still plant something in that. If I have acres and acres of dirt, I can plant a field. And so it's about being faithful with what you have today and what can you build and grow from it. And so money is no different. And I want to help people be free of that because it's literally like putting a plug in your spiritual journey and your journey to truth. And all this is like, when you have a toxic money attachment, it's literally just blocking you. It's like fully putting a veil over your eyes you cannot see. And I want to see people free from that. So I'm putting together a program it's so funny because just like I said about like other gurus is I don't want this to be me telling everybody what to do. I want to help you get on your own journey and discover what your purpose is and help you get on that path for yourself. So that's my next project.
Thank you. I think it's very exciting and it's very useful and truthful and needed. So thank you for that. If people would like to learn more about you, where would they go?
Right now, Facebook or Instagram are the best places to find me. It's my full name, Kristin Menath. And eventually, pretty soon, we're going to have our website finished. So that will be coming soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, for sharing your advice. It's always great talking to you, and I'm glad we finally had this conversation.
Yes, me too. It's so good to talk to you. I love what you're doing, and this is so needed. So thank you for showing up for all of us.
Thank you.